Trump's crackdown has also sparked protesting across the country. In Dallas, people taking to the streets waving Mexican flags. In Los Angeles, police in riot gear forming a human barricade to shut down a protest that was blocking the busy 101 freeway. And in another surprising video, protesters burned the American flag. Which side are they on? President Trump unleashing an immigration enforcement machine, carrying out his promise to secure our southern border and the northern one. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is visiting active duty military in El Paso, Texas, who are working alongside now Border Patrol agents. They've been there. The numbers are getting bigger per Trump. We have new images of the United States Marines arriving at Guantanamo Bay, where violent illegal immigrants will be detained. Also this, the Trump administration has been working round the clock to round up and deport criminal illegals on flights out of our country. Trump's crackdown has also sparked protesting across the country. In Dallas, people taking to the streets waving Mexican flags. In Los Angeles, police in riot gear forming a human barricade to shut down a protest that was blocking the busy 101 freeway. And in another surprising video, protesters burned the American flag. Well, which side are they on? I almost hesitate to put those images up because I know it causes more people just to try to get attention by burning flags. But there you have it.
So you decide at 9 o'clock in the morning, a social media post went out that said protest, and the police let 101 freeway with everything that the trauma that everything that Los Angeles has been through, traffic anyway, on a Sunday. Now they let them shut down an unpermitted protest until 6 o'clock at night. It's unbelievable. And then to understand the Mexican flag and El Salvador flag is not going to sell your story. Your story is, I feel like an American, I've been here. Instead, you're saying, I feel like a Mexican and I deserve to take over here. One of the signs said, America's on stolen land anyway. That's not going to win over today's America. That might have been fantastic in 2020. We're not buying it now. So between that and what's happening with Rubio pushing to shut down the Darien Gap, the Venezuela taking back their people, what is happening on so many different ways, there is a massive crackdown in America on illegal immigration.
Can we just talk for a second about the Darien Gap? That's going to save a lot of lives of women and children in particular. That is some of the most harshest ground to traverse on the planet.
Flashback. This is a race into hell. Welcome to the Darien Gap, a 60-mile stretch of roadless, lawless, remote rainforest that links Colombia to Panama. This year alone, a record 400,000 people will cross it into their final leg through North America, all the way up to the US border.
Oh my God.
We've joined a group of around 1,200 migrants on their journey. We've barely begun before the heavens opened. The storm churned up the river. It's almost impossible to cross. We've made it, but the group just a few hours behind us didn't. They reported losing dozens of people washed away in the currents.
This must be one of the most difficult migrating routes in the whole of the world. And to think that these people have 3,000 miles in front of them.
I think some of the most effective arguments I've seen made are, for example, people in the restaurant industry, people in the home healthcare industry.
Flashback.
It's a voice rarely heard, the voice of a formerly enslaved person. Few know that in the decades following emancipation, interviews were done in an effort to preserve their stories. And in tonight's Prime Focus, you'll hear some of what they said as part of our partnership with the 10 Million Names Project. ABC's Alex Verche brings us their stories in their words.
I want you to tell me how you got your name. I got my name from President Jeff Davis, the President of the Southern Confederation. He owned my grandfather and my father. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and my father had learned how to write a little bit in Richmond, Virginia before he brought him down there.
You're listening to the voice of a formerly enslaved American. a man by the name of George Johnson. This rare and historic audio interview was recorded in 1941, almost 80 years after Mr. Johnson gained his freedom. He and his family worked on a plantation in Virginia owned by Confederate leader Jefferson Davis, a staunch opponent of abolition. In the interview, Johnson recalls a day in the life as an enslaved person.
Did they drive the slaves down there in Davis's Bend very hard, or did they work them reasonable?
Reasonable. You know, Marshall Jr. gave myself another boy, and boy was chopping cotton. Boy didn't kill with the gang, you understand? He come to hook the boy kill, you understand? That's the house of Marshall Jr. boy. And that's what's the trouble, son. Say, Mr. Don't hook me, crowd and kill with the gang.
Audio tape interviews like this are striking and uncommon, but are actually part of a long legacy of black families, communities, and institutions, including historically black colleges and universities, that lead the way in collecting and preserving the oral histories of the formerly enslaved people in the 19th and 20th centuries. In the 1930s and beyond, technology allowed some of these interviews to be recorded as part of both federal and independent projects. The details are often difficult to hear, but they remind us this history happened not too long ago, with names, faces, and stories.
Do we know roughly how many of these recordings exist?
The recordings are relatively rare.
In 1974, a woman named Celia Black, at the age of 114 years old and shortly before her death, recalled picking cotton in Texas as a child born into slavery.
I didn't have to pick cotton or nothing. I didn't do nothing but work in the field. Work in the field, oh goodness. Me and my husband would go out west and pick cotton. Go out west every year. We went this year going out there picking cotton.
Industries that rely on immigrants, both legal, undocumented people going through the system, and are willing to work with law enforcement to say, look, parts of this entire city we are sitting in would shut down if every person who came here illegally was deported. So how do we do this in a way that, to Kaylee's point, protects people from criminals, doesn't shut down major parts of the economy, including the agriculture sector? That's the challenge right now.
Stop breaking the law, asshole!
Number one, protesting on a freeway is always illegal. That's not protected protest, especially non-permitted protest. But secondly, I hear what you're saying, but I feel like we always talk about this, that I think it's a fallacious argument always. It's sort of like saying, if I can't afford to pay my taxes, you know, what am I going to do? Like, I have to do it this way because I can't afford it otherwise. There will be short-term pain as we readjust things. But the notion that the first foundational argument is, well, we rely on illegal immigration in these particular industries doesn't fly, because the American industry is still suffering then if it's not honest labor. And there's a lot of unemployed Americans that then, or legal immigrants that then could be selected for such. I'm not going to bless an argument where the premise relies on the backs of illegal immigrants. And I think to your point, you know, we've seen communities rally in the past around protecting themselves from horrific people like Larry Singleton and Richard Ramirez, you know, the Night Stalker, right? And to see the communities rally around so misguidedly these recidivist criminals is horrifying to me, because it means that the message has landed in a way that is so toxic and perverted. And when you see them burning the American flag, well, if it sucks here, you don't have to stay. But the reality is, not only is that anti-American, it's pro-cartel. So everyone waving the Mexican flags and everyone shutting down the LA freeway, you are telling me you align yourselves with the cartels above anything else.
So this mayor decides you can't get to your home in Pacific Palisades, it's too dangerous, but make sure the cops don't get the illegal immigrants out of the streets to block the 101 freeway. They are begging you to leave Los Angeles. You should do that.
Breaking our initial law, whatever your health or medical situation is, as you were pointing out, Marie, is breaking our laws to get into the country. And I know during the lead up to the election, people on your side of the aisle did not agree with Republicans on the fact that the first law broken is when you don't legally belong in this country. So I get it. We'll have a different discussion about pregnant women with birthright citizenship. Trump is open for that discussion.